and welcome to this update to the Science Fiction Human History channel. It has been quite a while since I've uploaded onto here. I think over a year. My last video was Halloween of 2022, so yes, quite a while. I just wanted to do a little video to explain partly why I've not uploaded anything, but also to talk more about the next chapter. I mean, the easy answer to the first part is that I just got really busy and the channel wasn't a priority of mine. I started the channel as a bit of fun. I originally thought that I would be able to create a video every week and very quickly discovered just how much effort it takes to get something to the quality that I wanted it to be. So yes, it took a lot longer than I was anticipating. And then I just got busy with other things. I got busy with work, I got busy with other projects, but now I want to talk about my new project. When I started the channel, the plan was to chart science fiction from its inception all the way through, decade by decade, and explaining the social and economic factors that inspired it. That was what I laid out in the intro of the first episode. So originally I was going to start with Jules Verne, go to H.G. Wells. In fact, those two were meant to be one video until I realised just how much content was in there. And then the idea would be I would do 1910, 1920, 1930, 1940, and so on. You're probably thinking, oh, well, you went from H.G. Wells straight to Metropolis and Roar. Those are 1920. What happened to 1910? Well, first of all, I decided I'm not going to just stick to a plan I set out right at the start. If I want to make a video about something, I'll just make a video about that rather than sticking to some idea of what this channel should be. The other thing was that I just couldn't find much science fiction from the 1910s that interested me. There was a book by an author called M.P. Shiel called The Purple Cloud. It's largely thought of as the first Last Man scenario. So the whole population has been killed off. One person remains. How do they survive in that? Which we see a bunch of times in things like I Am Legend, 28 Days Later, those kind of stories. But this is largely considered to be one of the first. So originally I thought, oh, brilliant, well, I'll talk about that. And then I read it and it was pretty terrible. It's not very good. The parts of it that really haven't aged well, parts of it that weren't appropriate even at the time. M.P. Shiel as a person just wasn't a very nice man. He was actually a pretty awful person, so I didn't really want to spend my time talking about him. So I decided instead to jump to the 1920s. But then the next video that I planned, going into the 30s, was I was going to talk about the pulps, the pulp stories, the pulp serials that were coming onto TV at the time or were being shared in magazines. And they started before the 30s, depending on your definition of the pulps, whether you're just talking about the paper or about the content. But I wanted to really look at it in the 30s and kind of look at how that inspired a more commercial side of science fiction, a more action-orientated, as well as going on to inspire things going forward like things like Star Wars, and George Lucas has always said that the pulps massively inspired things like Indiana Jones. So I really wanted to take a good look at them. That was going to be the next video, but as I say, I got busy, so I kind of put that one on the back burner, left my notes just on the laptop, and went away. But the idea kind of stuck there with me, and I thought, oh yeah, no, I would like to talk about the pulps. There's a lot about the pulps that I really enjoy. I really like searching out old pulp serials. We have a channel in the UK called Talking Pictures TV, which will show them on a Saturday, which I really love. I get a lot of kind of unjust nostalgia. I wasn't around at the time, but I kind of feel, oh yeah, I wish I'd been around in the 40s and 50s and gone down to the cinema on a Saturday morning to go and watch the next adventures of Flash Gordon, something like that. So I really wanted to talk about the pulps. So I kind of kept it on the back burner and put some feelers out, just contacted some of my friends just around the world, some people through some forums and such, and just started talking about them, trying to get a bit more information, trying to just really talk about them because I enjoyed talking about them. And then a couple of months ago, I was talking to a friend online and we were talking about a pulp series called Radar Men from the Moon. Now, Radar Men from the Moon is a serial from the 1950s. I think it's 1951, 1952, that kind of follows this guy, Commando Cody, who has this rocket suit. He kind of wears this jetpack on his back and he fights the radar men from the moon. It's great fun. It's really, really pulpy. It's kind of short episodes, and at the end of each one, there's kind of like this big calamity. Oh, how will Commando Cody escape from this one? And of course, he inevitably does. So I was watching it at the time, and I was talking to my friend about this, and he says to me, "Oh, have you ever heard of the Human Rocket?" I was like, "Oh no, well, you mean the Human Torch?" I know there'd been various versions of him, and he was like, "No, the Human Rocket by Ethan Traploy." Or Traploy. I said, no, I've not heard of that. He said, well, there was this story in the early 50s, late 40s, early 50s called The Human Rocket that was serialized in a series of pulp magazines that really has a lot of similarities between itself and Radar Men from the Moon. It's about a man who has this rocket suit and he uses it to fight crime across the world. I thought, that sounds great. Have you got a copy? Can you tell me where I could find a copy? I'd love to give that a little read, maybe talk about it on the channel. And he said no. He had read it when he was a child. An uncle of his had a big stack of these magazines in the back room, maybe in the attic, in a box of all these old amazing stories, weird fiction things. And that's where he'd first read it as a child, and it stuck with him. But unfortunately, that box had been destroyed not long after that. So I said, oh, that's a shame. And I just got about my life. Except it stayed with me. And I kept thinking, oh, God, I kind of really want to read this story. And I found it playing on my mind quite a bit. Not in a negative way, but more so just as a piece of lost media. Now, anyone who is a fan of these old media, whether it be books, film, TV, radio, will know there is a slew of content that has just been completely lost to time. Whether it's Doctor Who episodes being taped over, so we've lost some of those, or films that came out in the 1920s that the reels have just deteriorated, so what was on them is completely gone. All we have is like production stills. And it's a real shame because obviously these things were created by people, they were stories that people put out into the world, and now they're almost completely lost. And without proper record keeping, we don't have any idea what was really on them. It got me thinking about the Human Rocket and Ethan Traploy, and I thought, oh God, I wonder if he's written anything else. I wonder if I can track down this Ethan Traploy and find his story and just give it a read, or even just for the fun of tracking it down. At this point, I wasn't even interested in reading it. I just wanted to find it. So I did the bare minimum. I went to Wikipedia and nothing. Searched up Ethan Traploy, absolutely nothing. So I contacted my friend and I said, look, are you absolutely certain you didn't dream this, or that it wasn't a different name? Wasn't, are you certain it was Ethan Traploy? And he said, yes, I definitely read it, and it's definitely Ethan Traploy. He said he could remember the name very clearly at the top of the first issue. So I went away, I kept looking, and that's what I've been doing for the past 3 months. I've been searching for Ethan Traploy, which brings me on to the next chapter of this channel, or rather, the next chapter of my life. I am searching for Ethan Traploy, or any information about him, any works that he's done, anything like that. And this is why I'm opening it out onto here. If anyone has any information about Ethan Traploy, about the Human Rocket, about publications he worked with, or people who knew him, or whether or not it was an alias used by another writer. I know a lot of writers sometimes write under a different name if they're not too confident in their work, which might not be the best signal for the Human Rocket. Maybe it is utter garbage. But starting from today, I'm searching for Ethan Traploy, and I need your help. This channel is going to remain as it is, but I can't promise that I'm going to be uploading much in the near future. If at all, I would love to do other stories. I really want to cover the 50s. There's so much going on there, from the threat of communism, the atomic bomb. You've got all the stuff with Godzilla in Japan, all that fantastic stuff I want to discuss. But I can't promise that will come out anytime soon. But what I am going to do is I'm starting a new podcast called Who is Ethan Traploy? Ethan Traploy? If first of all, if anyone can tell me how to pronounce his name, that would be brilliant. Who is Ethan Traploy? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to chart my journey to find out who he is. Did he write any more? Where are those stories? Can we find any? I am putting this out into the world. I'm going to start I think on Instagram. I've been chatting to friends asking, well, what is the social media the young people use nowadays? I'm very much of the mindset of going down to those cereals on a Saturday morning. Social media isn't my forte, but in the coming weeks, I'm going to set up, I think, Instagram, Twitter, or X, or whatever it's called. Who is Ethan Traploy? And if anyone has any information, please do get in touch. And watch this space.